After 10 years of longing, Amelia is finally about to welcome the child she and her husband dreamed of. But as the moment of truth arrives, something feels off. Her partner suddenly steps out for a quick call and doesn't return. What could possibly be more important than witnessing the birth of their miracle? Before we dive into the story, don't forget to subscribe and tell us in the comments, which city are you watching from? The searing pain was a familiar enemy now, a relentless tide that crashed against Amelia's resolve. Each contraction pulled her deeper into the maelstrom, yet a fragile hope flickered within her. After 10 years of longing, countless doctors' appointments, and the quiet despair of empty nurseries, their miracle was finally arriving. Their baby. The very thought was a balm, a shimmering light at the end of a long, dark tunnel of infertility treatments, whispered disappointments, and the silent, aching void in their home. She gripped Liam's hand, her knuckles white, her breath coming in ragged gasps. His face, usually so composed, so meticulously put together, was etched with a mixture of concern and anticipation, though a subtle tension around his jaw hinted at something else. He murmured reassurances, stroking her hair, his presence a steady anchor in the storm. "You're doing great, my love. Just a little longer. Our baby will be here soon." His voice was low, soothing, a familiar comfort that had seen her through so many difficult moments over their 10 years of marriage. She squeezed his hand again, a silent plea for him to stay, to be her rock. The hospital room, sterile and bright, felt both alien and sacred. The rhythmic beeping of the fetal monitor was the only soundtrack to their shared agony and exhilaration, a constant reminder of the tiny life fighting its way into the world. Amelia closed her eyes, picturing the tiny face she had dreamed of for so long, the little fingers and toes she couldn't wait to count, the first cry that would signify the end of their decade-long wait. This was it, the culmination of a decade of yearning, of whispered prayers and unspoken fears, of doctors' visits and the emotional roller coaster of hope and despair. Every failed cycle, every negative test, every tear shed in private was leading to this moment. A sharp, particularly brutal contraction tore through her, and she cried out, her nails digging into Liam's palm. He flinched slightly, but held firm, his eyes locked on hers, a flicker of genuine alarm in their depths. "The nurse said the doctor will be here any minute," he whispered, wiping a bead of sweat from her forehead with his free hand. "Just focus on your breathing, okay?" Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a persistent, vibrating hum against his thigh. He glanced at it, a flicker of annoyance crossing his features, quickly masked. "It's probably just work." "No," he muttered, but didn't answer. The buzzing persisted, insistent, a demanding presence in the quiet room. It buzzed again, then again, almost aggressively. "You should get that," Amelia managed, her voice strained, each word an effort. "It might be important." A tiny seed of unease, barely perceptible amidst the overwhelming pain, began to sprout. Liam was usually so disciplined about work calls, but not usually this insistent. He hesitated, then pulled the phone out, his thumb hovering over the screen. His eyes widened slightly as he saw the caller ID. A strange, almost guilty expression clouded his face, a fleeting shadow that Amelia, in her pain-addled state, almost dismissed as her imagination. He quickly turned the screen away from her view. "Who is it?" she asked, a sliver of unease piercing through the pain, sharper this time. Her instincts, honed by years of living with him, told her something was off. He cleared his throat, a nervous habit she knew well. It's just a client, a really important one. I need to take this. It'll just be a second, I promise. I'll be right outside the door." His eyes darted to the clock on the wall, then back to her, a forced smile playing on his lips. Before she could protest, before she could even form the words to beg him not to leave her, he stood up, moving swiftly towards the door. "I'll be right back, I promise. Don't worry, you're doing so well." The door clicked shut, leaving her alone with the relentless contractions and the cold, clinical silence of the room, broken only by the steady beep, beep, beep of the monitor. A minute stretched into 5, then 10. Each passing second felt like an eternity, the pain growing more intense, the pressure building with an unbearable urgency. The nurse came in, a kind, middle-aged woman named Sarah, checked on her, and smiled reassuringly. "Almost time, Mrs. Hayes. Your husband stepped out?" Amelia nodded, her throat tight, a knot of anxiety tightening in her chest. Just for a moment. He had a call. "Ah, well, he'll want to be back soon," the nurse said gently, adjusting the IV drip. "Things are progressing nicely." But moments turned into an agonizing half-hour. The pain intensified, the pressure building with an unbearable urgency. Panic began to claw at her. Where was he? Why was he taking so long? This wasn't just a client call. Liam, for all his faults, had always been present when it mattered. This was the moment, their moment. The doctor finally arrived, a kind-faced woman with calm eyes and a reassuring demeanor. "Mrs. Hayes, we're ready to proceed. It looks like your little one is eager to meet you. Where is your husband?" Amelia's voice trembled, raw with pain and a burgeoning sense of dread. He stepped out. He said he'd be right back, for a call." The doctor's brow furrowed slightly, a hint of concern in her expression, but she nodded. "Well, we can't wait much longer. We need to get this baby out. Let's get you ready." She gave a quick, professional smile, but Amelia could feel the unspoken question hanging in the air. Why isn't he here? The next hour was a blur of excruciating pain, the doctor's calm instructions, and the overwhelming sense of abandonment. Each push was fueled by a desperate hope that Liam would burst through the door, his face alight with relief and joy, ready to witness the culmination of their shared dream. She imagined him cutting the umbilical cord, holding their baby for the first time, his eyes shining with tears. But he never came. The image of him, laughing and celebrating with her, faded with each unfulfilled expectation. Finally, with a triumphant cry that pierced through the haze of pain and exhaustion, their baby entered the world. A girl. A beautiful, perfect little girl, tiny and wrinkled and utterly magnificent. The doctor placed her on Amelia's chest, and the world shifted. All the pain, all the fear, all the years of waiting dissolved in an instant, replaced by an overwhelming wave of love so profound it stole her breath. Lily. Her Lily. But as she held her daughter, stroking the soft, damp hair, a bitter ache settled in her heart. Liam wasn't there. He missed it. He missed her. The first breath, the first cry, the first touch, the most significant moment of their lives, and he was absent. A nurse, seeing the tears in Amelia's eyes, gently asked, "Would you like me to try calling your husband again, Mrs. Hayes? He really should be here." Amelia nodded, her voice barely a whisper, thick with emotion. "Please, just try his mobile." The nurse stepped out, and Amelia focused on her daughter, burying her face in the sweet-smelling scalp, kissing the tiny forehead. This was her world now, this precious little being. Lily's tiny fingers curled around Amelia's thumb, a grip surprisingly strong. In that moment, Amelia felt a fierce, primal protectiveness surge through her. Whatever came next, she would protect this child. The nurse returned a few minutes later, her expression apologetic, her shoulders slumped. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Hayes. He's not answering. I tried his office line too, but it just went to voicemail. I left a message on both." Amelia's heart sank, a cold, heavy stone dropping into the pit of her stomach. Not answering. On the day their child was born. It was incomprehensible. A stark, brutal betrayal that overshadowed even the joy of Lily's arrival. It was hours later, after she had been moved to a recovery room, her daughter nestled safely in a bassinet beside her, finally sleeping soundly, that the truth began to unravel. Amelia, exhausted but unable to sleep, reached for her phone, which she had forgotten about in the chaos of labor. It buzzed with a notification. It was a photo from a mutual friend's social media, a casual post from a birthday party. The photo showed a brightly decorated party room, balloons in vibrant colors, a multi-tiered cake with candles glowing. And there, in the center of the jubilant group, laughing, His arm casually slung around a woman Amelia vaguely recognized from his office was Liam. Beside him, the woman, Sarah, was beaming, and in front of them, a beaming little boy, no older than 7, blowing out candles on a birthday cake, his face alight with pure, unadulterated joy. The caption read, "Happy 7th birthday, Leo. So glad we could celebrate with you and your wonderful parents, Liam and Sarah." The world tilted. Leo, Sarah, birthday. The word swam before her eyes, then snapped into sharp, horrifying focus. It wasn't a client call. It was his other family, his mistress, his son, a son, 7 years old, 7 years. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow, far more devastating than any contraction she had endured. 10 years. 10 years of trying, of hoping, of building a life with a man who had been living a double life. 10 years of her devotion, her vulnerability, her deepest desires, all mocked by a secret existence he had meticulously crafted. He had left her, in her most vulnerable moment, as she brought their child into the world, to celebrate another child's birthday, his own child. A cold, hard fury began to simmer beneath the surface of her shock and heartbreak. It wasn't just anger, it was a volcanic eruption of righteous indignation. She looked at her newborn daughter, so innocent, so pure, her tiny chest rising and falling with peaceful breaths. A fierce, almost terrifying protectiveness surged through her. This child deserved a father who was present, who cherished her, who didn't abandon her mother in the delivery room for a sordid secret. This child deserved a life free from the shadows of deceit. When Liam finally arrived, nearly 8 hours after their daughter's birth, the hospital corridors were quiet. He looked disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, his hair a mess, and vaguely guilty. He tried to offer a flimsy excuse about an emergency meeting that had run incredibly late, a crisis that only he could handle. But the words died on his lips as he saw the cold, unwavering gaze in Amelia's eyes, a gaze he had never seen before. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed from tears and exhaustion, but there was a new, terrifying resolve in them. "Don't," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, each syllable dripping with venom. "Don't even try." She held up her phone, the photo of him and Sarah and Leo glaringly obvious on the screen, the bright balloons and happy faces a grotesque mockery of her pain. His face drained of color, turning a sickly gray. He looked like a deer caught in headlights, stripped bare of all his carefully constructed lies. "Amelia, I can explain," he began, his voice a desperate whisper, reaching out a hand towards her. "There's nothing to explain," she cut him off, her voice rising now, fueled by a decade of suppressed emotion and the raw, agonizing pain of betrayal. "You left me. You left us. While I was giving birth to our daughter, the child we waited 10 years for, the child I put my body and soul through hell for, you were celebrating with your other family, your other son, your mistress." Her voice cracked on the last word, but she fought back the tears, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. He tried to reach for her hand again, a pathetic gesture of remorse, but she recoiled as if burned. "Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me." The nurse, sensing the escalating tension and the raw emotion in the room, discreetly slipped out, closing the door softly behind her. "I'm so sorry, Amelia. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was going to tell you, I swear. I didn't know how." Liam's voice was pleading, his eyes wide with a fear she found utterly satisfying. "A mistake?" she scoffed, a bitter, humorless laugh escaping her lips. It was a sound that chilled him to the bone. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of trying for a baby, 10 years of pretending to be the devoted husband, and you have a whole other life? A son? How long, Liam? How long have you been lying to me? How long have you been playing this disgusting game?" He hung his head, unable to meet her gaze, the silence stretching between them, heavy with his unspoken confession. "A few years," he mumbled, his voice barely audible, "since before we started the IVF. A few years." The words echoed in her mind, each syllable a fresh stab wound, twisting the knife deeper. Since before they started the AVF, that meant he had been lying to her, building a second family, while she was enduring painful injections, hormonal swings, and the crushing disappointment of failed cycles, all for their child. The sheer audacity, the depth of his deception was staggering. A few years of her life, her dreams, her hopes, wasted on a lie. "Get out," she said, her voice trembling with barely contained rage, a raw fury that threatened to consume her. "Get out of my sight. Get out of this room. Get out of my life. I don't ever want to see you again." He tried to plead, to apologize, to explain, but she was beyond listening, beyond reason. The image of him laughing with Sarah and Leo while she was screaming in pain, alone, giving birth to his child, was burned into her mind, an indelible scar. It was a betrayal so profound, so absolute, that it eclipsed everything they had ever built together. "You will hear from my lawyer," she stated, her voice regaining its steel, cold and sharp as a surgeon's scalpel. "And believe me, Liam, you will regret this day for the rest of your life. Every single asset, every penny, every investment, it's all coming to me. You will pay for this." Liam, stunned by her ferocity, by the uncharacteristic steel in her voice, could only stare. He had always seen Amelia as gentle, perhaps a little naive, certainly not capable of such calculated fury. He had underestimated her, terribly. He mumbled something about joint assets, about fairness, but she merely fixed him with a stare that promised retribution. With a final defeated sigh, he turned and left the room, the door clicking shut behind him, sealing his fate. The divorce was swift and brutal, a whirlwind of legal documents, court appearances, and the cold, hard reality of dissolving a decade-long marriage. Amelia, armed with irrefutable proof of his infidelity and abandonment during a critical medical event, a fact that horrified the judge and swayed public opinion, pursued every legal avenue to ensure he paid dearly for his betrayal. Her lawyer, a formidable woman named Evelyn Reed, with a reputation for mercilessness and an uncanny ability to dissect a case, relished the challenge. Evelyn built a case so compelling, so damning, that Liam's defense crumbled under its weight. The emotional distress, the medical abandonment, the blatant deception. It all painted a picture of a man utterly devoid of conscience. The media, catching wind of the sensational details, had a field day, turning Liam into a pariah. His carefully constructed double life crumbled, exposing him to public humiliation and professional ruin. Clients abandoned him, his business partners distanced themselves, and his reputation was in tatters. The assets they had accumulated over a decade of marriage, the sprawling house in the affluent suburbs, the 2 investment properties, the substantial savings accounts, the luxury cars, even his prized vintage watch collection, all became hers. Every penny, every brick, every share. Evelyn ensured that the settlement left him with little more than the clothes on his back and the crushing weight of his misdeeds. He fought, of course, desperate and pathetic, clinging to any shred of what he believed was his. His arguments were hollow, his pleas for leniency falling on deaf ears. He tried to appeal to Amelia's good nature, to the love they once shared, but she remained unyielding. The judge, swayed by the compelling evidence and the sheer callousness of his actions, ruled decisively in Amelia's favor. The final decree was a thick stack of papers, but its message was simple. Amelia Hayes was free, and Liam Hayes was stripped bare. The day the divorce was finalized, Amelia stood in the grand, empty living room of what was now solely her house. The silence was profound, no longer filled with the ghosts of a shared past, but with the quiet promise of a new beginning. The afternoon sun streamed through the large bay windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, a metaphor for the new, clean slate before her. She looked out at the manicured garden, the vibrant roses, the ancient oak tree, a faint, genuine smile touching her lips. This was hers, all hers, a testament to her resilience. Her daughter Lily was asleep upstairs, a tiny, innocent bundle of joy, her peaceful breathing a soft counterpoint to the quiet house. Lily was the true victor in this saga. the precious reason Amelia had found the strength to fight. Amelia had a new purpose, a fierce determination to provide Lily with a life filled with love, honesty, and security. A life free from the lies and betrayals that had defined her own marriage. Liam was gone. His betrayal had been a crucible, burning away the illusions and leaving behind a woman forged in fire, stronger and more resilient than she had ever imagined. He had taken her pain, yes, the pain that would forever linger, a scar on her heart, but in return she had taken everything else. And as she looked around her new domain, the house that now felt truly like a home, she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that she had won. Not just the assets, not just the legal battle, but her freedom, her dignity, and a future unburdened by lies, a future she would build, brick by painful brick, for herself and for her daughter. The decade of waiting had ended not with a whimper, but with a roar, and Amelia Hayes, no longer just a wife, but a survivor, was ready to embrace it.